Hello everyone, and sorry for jumping in a bit last minute here on Tuesday evening rather than the regular slot of Wednesday night. As I discovered or perhaps remembered this morning, it's Valentine's Day tomorrow night, and I'm sure you all have wonderful plans, and I certainly don't have hugely romantic things going on, but I do have a fundraiser that I'm going to with my boyfriend and some friends, so sorry about that. And I just realised at the last minute that I wouldn't be able to do the live at the usual time tomorrow. It's also half term here in the UK, so while I don't have children, I do have my sister's kids here this week, which is absolutely lovely. It also means that we've had a bit of a relaxing day today. I'm managing some of my business priorities around that, and of course trying to spend quality time with them the couple of days that they are here, and it also means that I haven't really prepared this live chat today because of this last minute and half term and so on, but that's actually feeding very nicely into the topic that I wanted to talk about, and I'll paste the link to the blog post that went out today on this topic as well, which is all about how to get what you want from your business, and importantly how to build that around all your priorities in your life. So those of you who are new to my community, let me introduce myself. My name's Anna Lundberg. I'm a success coach and business strategist. I help people create more freedom, flexibility and fulfilment in different areas of their lives. And that last bit I always like to emphasise, because although people come to me talking about career change and building a business and so on, it's so important for me to bring that bigger picture and the vision of what you really want. And it sounds sort of both simple and also really sort of big and overwhelming when you talk about things like your purpose and your vision and all these things. But as we'll see, some of the questions are really much more practical. And it's just asking you these questions because when you are making a career change or setting up a business like this, there's a reason that you're doing that. So you're moving away from something, you want more of some things, less of some other things. And it's very easy to get caught up in doing the same things that you're doing before. And I'd love to share quite a bit more, I guess, my own personal story and maybe some of the, I don't want to say struggles, but certainly some of the challenges that I'm facing in terms of balancing some of these things, big ambitions and ideas and goals and so on in the business area, while also, you know, reminding ourselves of what's really important in all those other areas. And I talk quite a lot about the 5 L's model that I came up with, which is about success really in different areas of your life. So there's the narrow traditional definition of success in terms of fame and fortune, so the job and the salary, the money, the prestige and all those things, the big house and so on. Bit of a cliche and stereotype, and it can mean lots of different things, but you know, very narrow focus on that kind of career success, the suit, the promotion and so on, and broadening that in the 5 L's model to think about your health and well-being, your relationships, and both romantic and family and friends and community and so on, and also the impact you're making. So when it comes to work, doing meaningful work and work that you enjoy, and which we'll talk about in a moment, having fun, enjoying yourself, because what is life if not to be enjoyed to the extent that we can, and learning as well. You know, lifelong learning and curiosity is a huge value for me, and I think it's the way in which we get out of that comfort zone, grow, and continue to challenge ourselves and actually create meaning, because there's one thing which is happiness and joy and pleasure and so on. There's another level to that which is meaning, something that's more fulfillment, something a bit deeper, and I think that does come from challenging ourselves. And you know, that bar can be raised, so every time we kind of expand that comfort zone, something that felt very challenging before can now become very comfortable, but yet there still are some things that are challenging, which I've definitely been experiencing recently as I've been sort of pushing my boundaries a little bit in different areas. But all that to say that, you know, I think it's so important to consider all these different areas, and especially then when we're creating a business, changing career in a way that we want to really tick a lot of those boxes in a way, or bring a balance where there wasn't a balance before, it's really important to focus on that. And the reason why, and again, I'm perhaps facing this myself at the moment, the reason why it's such an important discussion to have up front is that it can be so tempting to think, just now it's really busy because I've got this group program launching and I want to get the podcast out and my book and I really want to make an impact this year, and I'm also doing this in that area, and this is so important. It's just temporary chaos. Tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, things are going to calm down and I'm going to be able to exercise more and eat better and spend more time with my family or whatever it is. And that's just such a natural tendency. I'm certainly falling victim to that. It's very easy to think this is just a temporary phase. I'm just bringing in a bit of extra money right now, or I'm just doing a bit of extra work to get these projects off the ground. And I think that's very dangerous, because it is never just temporary. It's never, just today. If we behave in a certain way today, we're going to be doing the same things tomorrow. It creates patterns and behaviours. I think humans are very much creatures of habit, and there's so much now around, creating positive habits and so on. Unfortunately, if we create a habit of working late into the night, and in our old offices, right, in those corporate jobs, and also then when we do our own businesses, especially, because we often love our work so much and we are doing that hustle and so on, we might work much later on. So, it's very tempting to allow those sort of temporary exceptions to creep into your routine and to deprioritise things like exercise and eating well and sleeping and, taking some time off to go to a museum exhibit or to, have a lie-in or whatever else, you want to do. So that can be quite tricky. And I think it's really important not to postpone those things. Because if you build a business that inherently is built on all that imbalance and stress and burnout and so on, again, you're creating those habits, but also you're building a business, and that's built on that foundation. And it's a very shaky foundation, I'm going to say, but certainly it's a very tense, uncomfortable and unhappy, unfulfilled type of foundation to base things on. So it's so important to understand from day one, even if it means that you'll be building the business more slowly, but understand what exactly you want and really think about the choices you're making and feel what feels right. That's again something that doesn't come naturally to a lot of us, but make those intuitive choices and give yourself that time, experiment, learn, and build a framework, a time time management and calendar and things that work for you, and be kind to yourself if it doesn't work as you perhaps hoped. And of course it never will. In terms of time management, I've talked about the ideal week a couple of weeks ago, and that's a great tool and thinking about how to manage your time. But that ideal week is exactly that, it's an ideal week. So it's never going to be like that. So for all our talk of coming up with this vision and plan and so on, of course the business is never going to look exactly like that. But I think it's an important exercise. And again, for me, at the moment, there are a lot of things I want to do. And I am naturally ambitious and self-motivated. Not because I want to achieve any kind of fame and glory in that traditional sense, just because I love my work. I love seeing, the responses from you guys, seeing the change that's being created and people being inspired. I love writing, I love putting things out there, and I'm just enjoying it so much. So I've always got all these ideas and so on, but I need to be, careful, because the reasons why I set this business up, apart from wanting to help people get that message out there, and really bring this whole idea of reimagining success and helping others to balance their lives and change perspective and find more fulfilling work and so on. Of course, I want to do that for myself as well, and I need to role model those behaviours. So I'm very much, and I have been very much, focusing on my health and wellness, well-being, whatever words we want to use, physically, mentally, emotionally, and so on. And certainly that foundation this year, I've been really good in terms of eating and exercising and so on. But of course, can be tempting to, not leave the house on a day like this because it's been raining all day and I'll just end up working, or, worrying about that deadline that you have rather than just being present with your niece and nephew, for example. So definitely something that I'm still working on. It's a process, it's a learning journey, as they all say. It's always about a journey, and there's no real destination other than an ongoing sort of balancing act, really. But just to share, I guess, a little bit vulnerably, that this is something that I'm still working on, but something that's so important. And there is a delicate balance, because there's a big picture, the sort of long-term vision on the one hand, which is really important, but there is also the day-to-day reality. And there are some short-term needs. So we'll talk about this in a moment in terms of finding work that you enjoy. But of course, in the short term, it may be that you need to make some choices simply because, let's say, you need to bring in money, or you're doing a favour for somebody, or, you know, there is some reason why the short-term sort of means to an end is a particular kind of work or client or whatever it is that you don't necessarily want to focus on in the future. So it's not to say that you have to be completely, you know, values-driven, make these black and white choices and say no to all these things that don't 100% fit with your vision, because that's probably not going to work for your business. You need to be a little bit pragmatic and flexible as well. So it's a delicate balance of sort of having that big picture vision on the one hand, and then having the practical realities on the other. But I've babbled on enough on why this is important, a little bit about my own story and my own sort of exploration, and I wanted to talk about a few sort of ideas as to how you can really get what you want from your business, in the sense of getting that clear vision in place, understanding what's going to work for you, and then make sure that you're thinking of and creating and evolving the business in a way that will actually support those needs and desires and wants, and address any fears, you know, all these things, and the practical reality as well. So you don't want to, you know, create a business that simply has no foundation at all in your day-to-day reality, or you know, strive for something that actually, if you were to achieve it, isn't going to bring you what it is you want. So it's just being very mindful of what you're working towards, why it's important, and then finding ways to move towards that in your day-to-day. So a few ideas as to how you can really create that vision. And the first one is really going back to your values. And I do talk about this quite a lot, and it's an interesting one because it's certainly something I never really come across before my coaching experience of doing my coaching training and so on, but it's something I hear more and more. And it's actually something that we do a lot now in business strategy and branding. You know, we hear about companies being values driven and having that purpose and mission, but really understanding your values is the foundation and a sort of guiding star, principles, parameters, more so than, you know, I want to have this job or this business or that business, or live in this place or that place, or be with that person or this person. You know, they're very much core to who you are. And they're both sort of big and general and all-encompassing, and also very specific and focused, and can be really helpful as those guiding principles or the guiding star to sort of steer your ship, rather than having that exact destination and sort of route mapped out on a piece of paper. It's really more of a direction and a guidance. But, you know, your values could be things like creativity and innovation, breaking the rules or challenging norms and so on. That's a certain kind of profile of someone. Risk-taking, or it could be, you know, actually dependability and trust and loyalty, stability, security, those kinds of words, you know, being grounded, pragmatic and so on. Or, you know, that there's such a huge range. Adventure, freedom, independence are a lot of words that come up when we're first starting out. And I do think, although our values are really core to who we are over a long period of time, I think they can change over sort of the seasonality, the stages of our lives. And certainly if you've been over-indexing in a way, sort of at one extreme, you know, if you've been in some really restricted environment at work, a controlling boss, unhappy, you know, no freedom, no independence in a role, then it's very natural that you would then feel that actually freedom, independence, and creativity and all these things could be really core to you. And actually, as you evolve, it may be that you have so much freedom and independence and creativity that some other values come up for you. And that certainly happened to me. I still think freedom and independence are certainly values for me, but I think after having, you know, almost too much freedom in terms of having no, you know, location base, no partner, no job, no anything really, I think having that much freedom, it's an amazing experience and so many lessons learned and fantastic people I met and adventures and so on. But there comes a point when you've actually gone so big that you want to kind of come back and feel more grounded, and maybe find more of a home base, for example. And again, some other values might come up in terms of, you know, belonging and community and so on. And with all of these values, it's not to judge There are no right or wrong answers, which is great news. You don't get a gold star for choosing some really sensible or exciting values. It really is an exercise in understanding who you are. And again, it can evolve, it will evolve. But having an idea of what's important to you right now, and it may change if you just had a child. It may change if you've just got married or something like that, or if you just left a job, if you're just starting a business. Some of these things will affect your focus. But trying to take a bit of a step back out of whatever's happening and thinking of, what would I really stand for if I had to? What would I sort of fight for the right to do if somebody challenged me? And really thinking of those values at the core of who you are, and therefore at the core of the business that you're going to build. And the reality is, and someone picked up on this on Twitter today, which I loved, that if you build a life, a business that is misaligned with those values, you are never going to feel successful. You're never going to be happy, fulfilled. There's going to be this complete disconnect. And I certainly experienced that, and I think a lot of you have as well, in my corporate career, where I felt that there were a number of values that, of course, I didn't think in those terms at the time, but looking back now, I feel that I wasn't living a life that was aligned to what was important to me, what I cared about, and those really core values to me. And that can be soul destroying is the word I use for that, really. Wears you down. You tell yourself, you tell other people that you don't really want to be there, and yet you do nothing about it. So that just grinds you down. It really destroys your soul. So living a life, that's full of shoulds and other people's obligations and expectations and so on, just is not a life that we want to live if we have any choice in the matter. So to the extent that's possible, getting an understanding of our core values and then doing everything we can to take steps towards living a life that's aligned with those values, and in this context building a business anchored in those values, I think that's absolutely crucial. And it's you're doing yourself a huge disservice if you don't do that. So it may seem like a strange thing to do if you haven't done it before, but have a think. There are some questions you can ask yourself and so on. You can Google, and there's lots of lists of values if you really want to sort of just explore and sort of see what's out there. But I think deep down, probably if you sat down with a pen and paper, you would come up with some pretty accurate answers. And then you can ask yourself, is this really what I'm building my business around? Is this consistent with what I'm doing at the moment? Are my actions aligned? Are my decisions aligned with those values? So that's the first piece, uncovering your core values. The second piece is following the fun, or identifying the joy, the flow, the enjoyment in the process. Because as I started by saying, you will have to do some work that you don't enjoy. And as an entrepreneur, starting up, you're going to wear a lot of hats. And actually, that's probably why starting up your business really suits you if you are multi-passionate, a Renaissance woman or man, all these words that we use now to describe people who have lots of different interests and passions and ideas, and you can't quite sort of label yourself or find that one thing that fits you exactly. So that's ideal, because building your own business, first of all, you're creating your own business, so you can create it around all those different interests. You can create a job that doesn't exist out there, that there's no sort of simple job title and description you could apply for. You can create your own, and that's a wonderful thing. And then also you will have to do, some less sexy things like admin and finance and so on, but also potentially speaking to people and selling and promoting and marketing and writing and negotiating and networking, all these different things in your job. And whatever business you choose, there will be a lot of roles, and in particular at the beginning. It may be that you choose to set it up that you sort of outsource some of those things, but certainly you are going to be doing a lot of different things. So it's important to recognise that you may need to do some things that you don't particularly enjoy at the beginning, but certainly you want to enjoy that mix of different things, if you see what I mean. You want to sort of be open to that idea of having to do things that you haven't done before, learning, challenging yourself, and so on. But really the important thing is thinking about the kind of work that you want to do, that you love doing. And I'm a big believer that that's a win-win, certainly for you and the employer if you're in a job, but definitely for a business. Starting a business and growing a business is hard work. If you're in it for the long haul, which I hope you are, it's not just a bit of a, fad. Maybe you're just exploring at the moment, but when we make the decision to go for it, it's going to take time to get this off the ground. And with that in mind, you want to find work that you love doing. You may not love it every day. You may not love it when you have a really hardcore deadline tomorrow for something, or you've put lots of pressure on yourself, or, tech problems, your website crashes, which happens surprisingly often. There are little coding issues or, plugin updates and all these lovely things that you'll learn about with WordPress, for example, or Facebook and all these things. You may not love it every day, but the idea is that you're more or less creating a business around the things that you do enjoy. And that's going to keep you motivated. It's going to make you deliver the best work. It's going to make sure that you connect with your clients and customers. So really it's a win-win. But again, you're creating something because you want to create this business for yourself. And why on earth would you create something that's just going to be as bad or worse than the work that you were doing before? So it's around finding the things that you really enjoy. And I mentioned the idea of flow. There is this concept that, when you do one of those things that you love doing so much that you get started and you go, oh, I'll just do this for 5-10 minutes. And suddenly before you know it, an hour, 3 hours, 5 hours have passed. That's the kind of work that you're so caught up in, you're so in the flow that, you don't even notice that time is passing. That's where we want to get to. Ideally, you spend a day doing all these amazing things, building your business, and you barely notice that the time has gone by. Having said that, we want to be mindful and present and so on, of course, but you don't want to be one of those people who's counting the minutes. I had lots of colleagues in banks and institutions around me as well who are literally counting the minutes from, the moment they come to the office to the end of the day, and counting the days to the weekend, counting the weeks and months to holidays, and that's not what you want to be doing. You want to more rather than less, enjoy the work that you're doing. So really thinking about what kind of work, what kind of clients bring you joy. Sometimes when you start, perhaps as a freelancer, you take on some particular projects and you realise that a certain type of client or customer is a better one than others, either because of, profit margin or the size of the project or so on, but also often it may be because of the way in which they work, and you might find patterns there, that there are certain types of organisations you like to work with, certain size of organisations. Maybe you love the startup environments, or maybe you prefer the big established organisations because they'll pay you on time and they have a structure and a pattern and so on. So thinking about all the different aspects of projects and type of work and clients and organisations and so on, but really thinking about what it is that you really enjoy. So that's talking about sort of the values and the fun, and that all sounds great. Sometimes the most important thing about the work that you're doing is actually the practical stuff. So, you may have some incredibly fulfilling work, it's meaningful, you're changing the world, but you have to commute 2-3 hours on the M25 in London. You have a terrible boss maybe, which is unfortunately often the case. Whatever that is, you're missing your kids going to bed every evening, or you have to get up at 4 a.m, you have to work weekends, you're not allowed to bring your dog to the office, whatever it is. But those practical things, having to change tube line at the worst possible rush hour time, sandwiched together like sardines, there you go, that's mixing some metaphors for you. That's my worst nightmare, being a little bit claustrophobic. But wasting your time there in that commute, the commute I think could be a really big practical concern. But other things like time, like wanting to be home at a certain time, whether it's to do a hobby, activity, spend time with your family, whatever your family means or looks like to you, having certain days off, being able to take certain holidays, and thinking about the practical logistics of the work and the time. And in the short term, again, you probably are building this business alongside either a full-time job or a part-time income stream, so it may be that we are squeezing the things in here and there, and it's not going to be the ideal, but it's again having that kind of vision in mind. Because if we're building a business around practical things that aren't going to work, so let's say you do have a young family and you love to speak, you love to do speaking engagements. Actually, my coach gave me this example because she had a young child, and she wanted to do speaking, but she didn't want to travel. She didn't want to be away from her child. So she's chosen to not do as many speaking engagements as she could have done, and maybe do other types of remote work instead. So that's an example of a choice that you can make. And maybe that slows your business growth down in some sense, but there are so many other ways in which you can, she has a podcast and she has Facebook Live and all these other things. So I don't think it's in any way hampering empowering her business. And as I often like to quote, Stephen Covey once said, it doesn't matter how fast you're going if you're going in the wrong direction. So if you're heading straight for this successful business that is going to make your life a living nightmare, it's going to not bring any of the stuff that you wanted, it's going to make you not have time to spend time with your kids and do your hobbies and be healthy and actually achieve the goals that you want to achieve, then obviously doesn't matter how fast we're getting there, how successful we are, that's not going to be successful in any meaningful way. So thinking about, you know, the sort of practical elements around the type of work that you want to be doing. So we talked about the values, we talked about, you know, the work that you want to be doing, but really thinking about those practical elements of it as well, in terms of, you know, do you want to travel to a client's office, for example, as many consultants do. When I did some contractual work, I was in the client's office Monday to Friday. It was great because you had the team, you had some social stuff going on, you know, go for after work drinks, feeling that sense of belonging. You can work so much better face to face and so on. But you know, the downside of that is, again, you've got the commute and it's almost like an office job and so on. You have to make it, it's not as flexible to the client's office. Or, you know, do you want to be able to work completely remotely, whether being location independent and being able to travel the world, or simply be able to work from home. And that means, you know, if your child needs to be picked up from school, or you know, if you want to go and see your dad or whatever it is, you can do that and then choose to do some extra work in the evening or at the weekend. It's a sunny day, go out for a run, and then, you know, work a little bit later in the afternoon because of that. So those are the kind of practical things you want to be thinking about. What does your ideal day look like from a practical sense? And linked to that, the next one is to think about the environment in which you're going to thrive. So again, a lot of this is a little bit the practical stuff. So your natural rhythm, you know, do you work well early in the morning? Do you work well late at night? What are the circumstances under which you can really be the best that you can be? You can be everything that you're trying to be in your business and in your life. And not just those practical things, but also thinking about how you're going to support yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, going forwards. And that means health and well-being. It means exercise. It means going out and getting fresh air. It means taking care of yourself. It means meditating if that's what helps you, or yoga, or running, or whatever it is. It means cooking and eating healthy meals, however you want to do that. It means planning your day and week. And it sounds so basic, but unfortunately, and again, from personal experience, it can get to the point where we're hustling away, working so hard to get these kind of short-term temporary goals off the ground and so on, and that's just not a sustainable foundation to build a thriving business. And again, you want to be role modeling, hopefully, for your children, for the people around you, for your clients and customers. And I think it's important. Sometimes I think we do have that still, especially women, but I think a lot of us with clients, we have sort of the should, and we feel like, oh, obliged to reply to emails in the evening or the weekends and so on. And we forget, you know, that we actually are empowered. And again, we're making these intentional choices about how we want to build our business. So being assertive, making those choices, putting the parameters in place, so putting a really clear framework, these are the rules, this is when I'm available, saying no to those types of projects, you know, blocking your calendar so that you can exercise first thing in the morning, so that you can have lunch in the middle of the day. I've certainly made that mistake before. I had my calendar wide open before for clients to book in calls at any time, and sometimes I would have back-to-back to the point that I had no time for lunch. Of course, you'd always be running late for each call, and I certainly wasn't at my best, and I wasn't able to help those people as I could have, and certainly I wasn't feeling well myself either. Likewise, you know, I had a lot of calls in the morning, and I found that's really my best work in terms of creative work, in terms of writing that book and creating contents and so on. So it's really important that I keep that time sacred for me, and then I make sure that I have a good lunch and then I can have my phone calls in the early afternoon, for example, when I have another peak of energy. So thinking about the environment in which you, and therefore your business, is going to thrive, and set that up from the start. A desk area is another thing, which unfortunately I'm still struggling with because I don't have a sort of permanent home base yet, but having an ergonomic area where you have really sort of a clear zen space where you can sit and do your work, if you have an office kind of business. But, you know, thinking about those practical things as well, even getting your sleep in the evening, you know, what's the ritual you're going to follow, how are you going to make sure that you get the hours that you need to feel well. So really thinking about that thriving environment. So practical concerns in terms of logistics and hours and so on, and then also, you know, for you to feel good and be your strongest and fittest and the best that you can be. And the final thing to think about with your vision, and I said from the beginning that we need to balance this big vision on the one hand with sort of the more practical day-to-day concerns. The final thing to think about is if, and I ask my clients this all the time, if I could wave a magic wand and give you everything you dreamed of, what would that look like? So let's say that everything you're working on does come true. Is the end result going to be what you're actually after? And, you know, we often underestimate what we can do in a short amount of time. No, overestimate what we can do in a short amount of time and underestimate what we can do in a long amount of time. And I came across a man, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name now, but he'd been a former, I want to say, NFL player in the US, and he was then an incredible speaker and had performed as a theatre and an actor and so on. It doesn't sound as convincing when I tell the story, but the principle of it all was that he had, from a very young age, started setting goals in these notebooks, and he was encouraging his kids to do this now, really big long-term goals to be the best whatever position he was playing on the NFL, you know, in 20 years' time, to be the best, you know, world-class speaker in 20 years. 20 times is a long time. I'm not sure if I feel comfortable saying I want to be the best whatever in 20 years, but certainly I feel comfortable with saying that I'm going to have been able to have written 5 books in 20 years. I'm going to, you know, live by the ocean in 20 years. There are a number of things that I feel very comfortable with establishing 10, 20 years from now, because that sort of gives us a more relaxed time frame, and it suddenly becomes very feasible. So when you think things seem really unrealistic, yes, they are in the short term, but maybe open the spectrum, sort of look a bit further into the future and think, okay, what's possible further on? But again, to think about, if you do achieve that, is that really what you want? So again, going back to that Stephen Covey quote, if you succeed really well and if you go really fast in this direction and you get there, is that where you want to be? Have you ended up over here and you actually wanted to be here? And again, that's to do with all those practical things that we've talked about. It's to do with the enjoyment. Let's say you hate working with charities and organisations in the not-for-profit sector because that's your background and you've had enough of that and you hate it. That may be the natural fit for you when you first quit, because it gives you some consulting opportunities and contracts and freelancing, and that's what people will come to you with. But if you continue building a business on that, you're not going to be where you want to be. You don't want to work with those organisations. Yes, it's a low-hanging fruit in the short term, but it's not going to be actually, you know, a successful, again, in the meaningful sense of successful business in the future. If you hate public speaking, if you're building a business that requires you absolutely to be out there speaking all the time, you know, to some extent we need to get comfortable with things like that. Again, you know, Facebook Live, podcasting, writing, some kind of exposure building is going to be important for you to connect to, you know, establish yourself as an expert, depending on the nature of your business. But certainly if it's something you know that you hate, there is no point in pushing yourself, and just, you're not going to do it first of all, you're not going to enjoy it, you're not going to stick with it, and you're not going to be successful ultimately. So do really think about the kind of things that you enjoy and find a way to get comfortable with it. You're not going to be able to do, again, everything that you love doing. There may sometimes be things that you do need to learn and get over. But, you know, it's very important that you find something that's going to work for you, because otherwise you're just not going to do it. And again, that is why we're here, and we're trying to create something that is what we want. So that means, just to recap over the things I've just been talking about, it means anchoring it in your fundamental values. It means finding work that you enjoy, finding that joy and the fun in the work, and finding the types of work, projects, clients, you know, speaking, writing, all these different nuances that you really love doing. The logistics of it all, those practical concerns that aren't so exciting, but actually can sometimes be more important than all these high-flung kind of ideas of passion and success and fulfilment and so on. Thinking of the environment in which you're going to thrive, again, both because you want to set that up in a way that you achieve what you want to achieve, but also because if you don't have that in place, you're not going to be able to do any of these other things. Your business is not going to succeed, you're going to break down, and your business because of that will break down too. So getting that foundation in place. And then finally, again, dreaming really, really big, looking way into the future and holding that vision in your mind while you still sort of do that day to day in the short term. So finding ways always to bring little elements of that dream back to the now, and also taking little steps towards that dream as well. Because unfortunately, those are the things, and I have been talking about this quite a bit the last few weeks, those are the things, the important but not urgent, the big, exciting passion projects, the writing of the book, the establishing the blog if it's your first, foray into the world, putting a website out there, whatever it is. Those are things that don't happen. So that's why I'm always talking about taking that one step, because if you take one step, that creates momentum, it gets you out of that comfort zone, jolts you a little bit, gets you over that hump, and suddenly you're taking lots and lots of steps and you're not looking back. So, keep that big vision in mind, but take little steps along the way. So hopefully that was interesting in terms of sharing a little bit about my personal sort of struggles, I guess really is the word, in terms of trying to balance that big picture in the short term, trying to balance your ambitions and goals and sort of need to do certain things in the short term, while also remembering that if you set things up in that way, it's not going to work in the long term. It certainly won't bring you where you want to be. And really taking a step back and thinking, hang on a second, what am I actually creating here? If I do all these things that I'm doing right now, are they going to take me to where I want to get to? Or am I just going to end up where I started, or in a worse place, or, over here where I really want to be over there? So hopefully a bit of food for thought in terms of what you want from your business, which is really the first step to getting what you want, of course. Always starting with defining success before we get to actually creating it. And we have been talking a lot about mindset and fears and blocks and so on these last few weeks and months. So we are going to be shifting gear a little bit. This is really the start of thinking about what we want to get out of our businesses. And whether you're considering starting a business, you've already started one, just getting off the ground, or you're a little bit further along, I think these are important questions to be asking. And in the coming weeks and months, as promised, I will be now shifting a little bit more towards real concrete things around moving forwards, taking that consistent action, building the brand, marketing ourselves, and so on. So hopefully that will be good for a lot of you guys in the group who I know are a bit further along, a bit more advanced. You've already got that kind of idea. You've got over that first hump. You've already got the momentum going, but now you want to make this really work. You want to actually get the money coming in to sort of more significant levels and start creating that big vision that we're talking about. So thanks so much for watching. I'd love to get your comments and questions. As ever, I'm creating these videos in response to things I'm hearing from you all, creating lots of resources, both on my membership site now and also free stuff that I'm putting out there, YouTube, Facebook, different PDFs and so on. So do please let me know if you have any questions, ideas, concerns, anything at all. I'm here for you. That's why I'm here. So happy Valentine's Day for tomorrow. Love is not just romantic love, it's every kind of love. So I hope you have lots of love in your life today, tomorrow, and always. And I look forward to seeing you back here again next Wednesday, usual time, 8 o'clock. And sorry again for the last minute change of time. Thanks for watching and hope to see you soon. Bye for now.